First, I want to give credits to Yakiri Akumo. Apologies if I am pronouncing it wrong in advance, for providing this odd fix from the Steam discussions page that surprisingly worked in my case, so I could play Wolfenstein the Old Blood with an AMD GPU at smooth 60 frames per second instead of being stuck at 35 frames per second or lower. I'll link it in the description. Now, do keep in mind, before we continue, this still may not work for everyone, at least based on the rest of the comments, just that it did in my case and I wanted to record video proof of it. Basically, you just find the directory where the game is saved. In mine, as I got it from GOG, it's at C, Apps, GOG Galaxy, Games, Wolfenstein the Old Blood. You just simply copy the original Wolf Old Blood underscore x64.exe file on the same folder, and then just rename it to Wolf Old Blood underscore x86.exe instead, and then run that. Supposedly, you can even just rename the original x64.exe file as is. Just make sure to check the rest of the Steam post for any issues in doing that. I had to do this because with an RX 570, I was just getting 30 to 35 frames per second on this game at 1080p medium settings. It was playable, technically, but considering how more demanding games that are newer than Wolfenstein the Old Blood, like Quantum Break and Deus Ex Mankind Divided, those can still run 60 FPS or above at 1080p medium settings as well. So it was looking pretty bad, even if I know that the game is running in OpenGL, which AMD software drivers are known to suck at. And aside from this, Riva Tuner's in-game overlay, the one that comes with MSI Afterburner that displays frame rate and information about your PC, it just wasn't working with this game. At least if it's set to the default Raster 3D Plus or Vector 3D for other games that where it does work. Changing it to Vector 2D was the only way to make it show on screen, but it was not worth it because it reduced the gameplay FPS to just around 18 frames per second, which might as well be a slideshow at that point, which is the only game so far that I did encounter such an effect. And thankfully, at least after the fix, it was like night and day. You can technically run the renamed x86 file as is, though in here I did choose to use GOG Galaxy to add it as a custom executable for the game, so I can write it that way. Already the difference is remarkable. So Raster 3D Plus displays just fine with no reduction in frame rates at all, so I can actually see the information of my PC as I game. The general gaming experience is smooth. 60 frames per second is recorded almost all the time. The game just plays the way it should subjectively be. And even setting the overlay to Vector 3D also works. Though admittedly, if you do set it to Vector 2D, it still slows down the game. It's not really necessary to use it anymore since the other overlays work just fine. And yeah, so far this game, it seems fine. I'm enjoying the gunplay so far. I guess the only letdown at most is id Engine at the time this was made is capped at 60 frames per second. Any attempt to do workarounds to increase the frame rate speeds up the game needlessly, which makes it not worth playing either that way. However, if those workarounds, which you can check in other YouTube tutorials, work for you and they're just fine without issues, then best of luck to you. Thank you. Goodbye.